Over the years on the UK rail system, there have been stations where its underground or main line have been closed down, either down to say the controversy of the Beeching Acts, well, the so-called reshaping British railways in the 1960s being an example, or one of the most common reasons is due to low passenger numbers and insufficient revenue. Yes, even the tube itself hasn't been spared from this either. To list a few stations from South Kentish Town, York Road, Down Street Mayfair, Brompton Road, St Mary's, Wood Lane Central for example, or some branch lines like Epping to Ongar Central, Holborn to Aldwych Piccadilly, and Charing Cross Branch Jubilee Line. However, there was a story in the 1990s of a tube station on the Northern Line that was originally closed for at first should have been a simple lift replacement, but nearly ended up with it being closed completely. So in this video, we're going to talk about Mornington Crescent, the tube station that got saved by BBC Radio 4 show. So let's get into it. Starting off with the station's history, Mornington Crescent originally opened on June 22, 1907 as part of the original Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway, aka the Hampstead Tube, from at the time Strand Station, now today's Charing Cross, to Golders Green and today's Archway. Although unusually at the time, it was actually known as Highgate, which today is the next station north of today's Archway. The original background of the line was formed as part of the Underground Electric Railways Company of London back in 1902, and at the time it was financed by American tycoon Charles Tyson Yerkes, which was also key for the formation of other tube lines such as the Baker Street Waterloo Railway, today's Bakerloo Line, Great Northern Piccadilly and Brompton Railway, today's Piccadilly Line, as well as being instrumental for the funding for the electrification of the District Railway at the time in 1905. Unfortunately, Yerkes would never get a chance to see the tube lines he financed open because on December 29, 1905, he passed away at the age of 68 from kidney disease whilst at the Astoria Hotel in New York. As for the station design itself, it was designed by young architect Leslie Green, which is station style with patterned tiled interior, with the station buildings being a distinctive oxblood red blocks featuring semicircular floor windows. His common tile design can still be seen on some stations on the Underground on the main tube lines Yerkes funded at the time of the Bakerloo, Piccadilly and Northern lines, even today. Unfortunately, after the Hampstead Tube first opened, Leslie Green sadly passed away a year later on August 31st, 1908 at just the young age of 33 after contracting pulmonary tuberculosis. So from the start, for Mornington Crescent Station itself, it was where its troubled history began. Before even opening, when it was proposed to open the station as Seymour Street, although as we know it, it would open as Mornington Crescent. In the years that followed, as other extensions continued, such as Hendon Central in July 1923, Edgware in August 1924, and Morden in September 1926, being at the time the last extension expanded the lines further with both the CCE and HR, as well as the City and South London Railway, CLSLR, and also I forgot to mention the same day as Morden was extended from Clapham Common was the same day when the line was extended from Embankment, although Charing Cross at the time, until from 1914 to 1976 to today's Kennington. But everything changed on July 1st, 1933, when the London Passenger Transport Board was formed and took over all of London's buses, trams, trolleybuses and underground lines. This takeover would be also instrumental to merging the CSLR and the CCE and HR to become the Northern Line on August 18, 1937. Ironically, Mornington Crescent itself for a long time was only open on weekdays, and up until 1966, the only trains of weekdays that stopped there were those going via today's High Barnet branch, although the line itself didn't actually start running to High Barnet and Mill Hill East until both 1940 and 1941 respectively. Fast forward to the late 1980s, as capacity rapidly increased on the tube, or as I like to give it a term called the capacity boom, it was also around that time complacency began to show on the tube system when it came to safety. Unfortunately, it wasn't until the King's Cross fire on Wednesday, November 18, 1987, that would be a massive wake-up call at the time where London Transport was transitioning to London Underground Limited, known today as London Underground. On October 23, 1992, Mornington Crescent was closed to replace the original 85-year-old lifts, and was supposed to close only for a year. Now, in recent years, replacing lifts at stations without escalators with long closures like Edgware Road, Bakerloo, Tufnell Park, Lambeth North, and Holland Park Central actually is not uncommon. Well, that was the plan until it was only discovered that the complacency of London Transport over the decades meant the station needed more than just a lift replacement, when it was found that the station had fallen into disrepair. It was this combined with the lack of funding at first for the station itself, it was tempting to shut down completely. On September 30th, 1994, Aldwych branch on the Piccadilly line from Holborn and Ongar branch on the Central line from Epping closed, and many feared Mornington Crescent would suffer a similar fate, and yes, came very close. There were two sides of the argument. On one hand, closing the station down short term, yes, would save money. However, saving money in the short term would lead to much bigger problems long term. On the other hand, that if Mornington Crescent station was closed down, then the next station north at Camden Town, which overcrowding there in a small ticket hall was already bad enough, would be gridlocked constantly, and well, it was a very valid point. So in the end, it made more sense of keeping Mornington Crescent open, and it would help make it as an alternative option, especially for Charing Cross branch services. Now, knowing from my experience from March 5th when I was up in London, walking from Camden Town to Mornington Crescent on a Saturday night, I could definitely understand why the station had to stay open. Anyway, back at the time of the station's uncertain future, then a helping hand came from an unlikely source, and it'd be the regular cast of BBC Radio 4 comedy panel show Sorry I Haven't a Clue. The original regular panellists on the show at the time included Willie Rushton, Barry Cryer, Graham Garden, Colin Sell, Tim Brooke Taylor, and originally hosted at the time by Humphrey Littleton, aka The Humph. So you may wonder, what's a comedy panel show from BBC Radio 4 got to do with this? Well, the reason is during the show there is a round featured called Mornington Crescent, which had been a feature on the show since Series 6 in 1978. Now, I admit, until I began looking more into the background of Mornington Crescent and its history, not only the station, but also when it came to the BBC Radio 4 show itself, I didn't know anything about the show itself. And yes, whilst it's very complicated to explain, but I will do my best to explain briefly how it would work in the actual game. So the basic idea of the game is that the panel would take in turns announcing a certain landmark or street or even the station with the aim to be the first to announce Mornington Crescent, which the panelists and the host are involved in a discussion regarding the legitimacy of each move, the rules of which the round is based on, and of course the strategy, etc. It was this campaign that in the end would pay off, and in the end funding was secured, as well as the future of the station being saved as a result. However, it wasn't until April 27, 1998, when finally, with the regular cast of the BBC Radio 4 show, there in person, performed the reopening ceremony of Mornington Crescent, after nearly 5.5-year closure. So what was changed? Well, for starters, the ticket hall had to be reconstructed, the number of lifts was reduced down, with the original second lift shaft converted into a staircase on one side, along with other station facilities. The emergency stairs were closed down, and as a result, for the platform itself, it was completely restored to its former Leslie Green originality, which also, at the time, taking into account the conformation to modern-day fire safety standards. Even today, you can say that it was justified to keep Mornington Crescent open, and sometimes you may think, what if? If it not been for that campaign by the people of the show, Sorry, I haven't a clue. Well, to me, the answer is very simple. Camden Town would be gridlocked to the point where calamity would happen. Although so far at the time of this recording, attempts to rebuild Camden Town Station within the last 20 years have either been rejected or just fallen by the wayside. Recent attempts included to build a second entrance as well as step-free access to all four platforms there have been futile, and with the ongoing financial problems at TfL, right now at this present time there doesn't seem to be any clear resolution to Camden Town Station's many problems. Today at Mornington Crescent, a memorial plaque was made in memory of one of the show's panellists, Willie Rushton, who unfortunately never got a chance to see the reopening of Mornington Crescent Station. He died on December 11, 1996 at the age of 59 after suffering a fatal heart attack. Humphrey Littleton, who at the time was the UK's oldest panel game host, continued hosting the BBC Radio 4 show until April 2008. But on April 18, 2008, he was admitted to hospital to repair an aortic aneurysm. 4 days later, on April 22nd, while the show was being recorded at the Pavilion Theatre in Bournemouth, while he was in hospital, he would be deputised by Would I Lie to You host Rob Brydon. In fact, before he was admitted to hospital, the producer John Naismith had announced that the Spring series, technically Series 51, would be cancelled while Humphrey was away. During the recording, a pre-recorded message was played to the audience at the Pavilion Theatre in Bournemouth with him saying, "I'm sorry I can't be with you today, as I am in hospital. I wish I thought of this sooner." It was unknown how long Humphrey Littleton, known as Humph, was going to be out for. But unfortunately, despite surgery, sadly, he was never able to return to the show, because on April 25, 2008, Humphrey Littleton would pass away at the age of 86. Colin Sell and Graham Garden are the only two surviving members of the original panels of the show, although still on the show today. However, Graham Garden has reduced his role to occasional appearances since returning in 2017 after missing series 65 to 67. Tim Taylor will continue on the show as a regular panelist, but unfortunately passed away on April 12, 2020 at the age of 79 due to complications after contracting COVID-19. Barry Cryer, who had been on the show from the very beginning when it was first began on April 11, 1972, from hosting the first 6 episodes until moving over to role as regular panelist, will continue as a panelist of the show after Humphrey Littleton's death, even when it recommenced in June 2009, which to this very day is presented by Jack D. He died on January 25, 2022, age 86, after nearly 50 years on the show. While it's a very sad note in some ways to end the video with the fact that most of the original cast of Sorry I Haven't a Clue are no longer with us. To sum up the video, whilst yes to those from a modern era may think Mornington Crescent is just another stop on the Northern Line's Charing Cross branch, with this year in October 2022 being 30 years on since the original closure and April 2023 being 25 years since it was reopened, to me it seems in the modern era it seems to be forgotten. However, for those who pass through today probably do not realise it's not just another tube stop on the Northern Line. No, in fact, Mornington Crescent can be known as the tube station that was saved by a BBC Radio 4 show. So, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about Mornington Crescent? Do you remember the days of the station before its closure back at the time in October 1992? Were you there when it was reopened in April 1998? Did you know about the BBC Radio 4 show Sorry I Haven't a Clue as a listener of the show or elsewhere? Do you think, given Camden Town's many problems, the decision to save Mornington Crescent was justified? Let me know in the comments below. And you can leave a like, share or subscribe to my channel for more rail content. Until my next video, see you next time. Bye guys.